Make sure you, in fact, let people know you're a senator. I'm not going to answer the question because the question is radical left. Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
Who's on your list?
Right. Gentlemen, I think
this is so unprecedented.
He's going to pack the court.
We have
not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it?
So, Andy, I'm gonna start off this video exactly like that. We don't need to do introductions. All that nicety stuff that wasn't tonight. Andy, oh gosh, I don't drink, but in some occasions, I get why people do. Andy, what's your first reactions? I'll kind of let you go out there first.
Honestly, though, Ashton, I feel super bad for Chris Wallace. He did so hard to try to, wrangle in the candidates, especially, Trump tonight. I know at one point he was like, please, Mr. President, stop. It was really bad. And 2016 wasn't the greatest, but man, they were just going at it tonight. Trump looked, for some reason, really defensive, really mad, really angry. I mean, we could get into that in a second, but he was just constantly attacking, or would pick and choose like miniature points and keep, jamming that dagger, if you will, into the back of Biden. But it looked like Biden, for the most part, then I kind of shrugged off most of the heavy hitters that Trump tried to do. Overall, it was a tough debate to really sit through 100% because of very little policy, very much just yelling back and forth. But overall, it was a very interesting night.
All right. Andy, I know you don't like to be someone who just let's say, focuses a lot on the president. And he kind of forced the issue on this debate because this is literally one of the worst presidential debates ever, just in the fact of how he acted. It was one of the worst presidential performances of a sitting president I've ever seen. Going into this debate, I remember I even texted you. I'm like, I'm fully willing to admit if Joe Biden doesn't show up in this debate, if he's a little bit slow. And the first two answers, he was getting comfortable. He was slow, and if the whole night would have been like that, it would have been a little rough. But Trump the whole night was just, I'm trying to keep it PG. He was a jerk. He was constantly interrupting. And he didn't even try to act like he was in the debate. He wasn't trying to the only time he ever kind of went into policy I can remember was when he started talking about some random country's leader talking about 4 cities. And I remember
cities. Yeah. It made no sense to me, Ashton, because I was watching him and he was like, I had a great conversation with this country who is a 4 city, by the way. I'm sitting there like, what country? Just tell us which country. Like, what is a 4 city? I just don't know.
Because my wife, or your sister, was sitting on the couch and she was like doing other stuff, and she hears that. She's like, what is he talking about? I'm like, I have no clue. It's like, to me, and I explained this to her, a lot of the times Trump will just give the moderator verbal diarrhea and then go straight into attacking the other candidate. That's what he typically does. That's his whole debate strategy. This was even worse than that because he skipped most of the answers. He just went straight into, he would be like, yeah, I heard your answer. Oh, Biden, you want to talk about your son while you're talking about your son who served in the military that died? I mean, there are so many moments that were just like garbage. I even asked my wife afterwards, I'm like, can you name me one policy thing Trump talked about? And she's like, no. I mean, I'm not going to underscore it. If Trump acts like this every debate, the race is done. It's already really done. The question is now, can Trump get it down to 4 or 5 points? and make it somewhat close for him to try to dispute enough states for the Supreme Court to overturn it. That's his only play. And even this entire debate was a dumpster fire, Andy. I'm going to be honest, like that's my opinion. It's a dumpster fire for Trump. Biden did all right. He couldn't really do any better, honestly, when he's getting interrupted like that, when he's getting just constantly attacked with lie after lie.
Yeah, Ashton. Just like I said, I don't think Joe Biden had the greatest of performances, but he really didn't need to have one. Like a lot of the things I told you was all he needs to do is just sit there, shave off the attacks, and just hit that smile. Because every time Joe Biden smiled, you could tell Donald Trump was getting riled up. He did not like it. I think Biden had some good one-liners. He said, he called him a clown, a fool. Literally said, "Will you just shut up, man?" That's a meme of itself. But you look at some of the things Trump was just saying as like policy, if you can call it that. He was being very hypocritical. One of the last segments of the night, they were talking about, election integrity and how it's going to end up with all the mail-in ballots. And he was saying how it was something about how, because Biden brought up the point of him also voting by mail. And then Trump's trying to like say there's good kinds of mail-in voting and bad, and then they're going to send it to you and you send it back, and he was confusing himself. But then there's like bad postmen. It all sounds like a bunch of lunacy, a bunch of conspiracy from him, from a man who's desperately trying to keep his presidency, and you can see that in the way he acted tonight. It's not. I haven't seen many debates, but this one is not good. But Biden didn't have to do much, and he did enough to like. If it's not about winning your base, obviously we know that. It's about getting those swing independent voters, and if you had to pick between those two, Biden is clearly the more tame option to pick from.
Yeah, we'll get into, because you were leaning towards Biden the last few weeks, but you haven't really made up your solid mind. We'll get into that at the end of this video. But overall, uh, let me just say, even in 2016, the debates, Trump by that point had started to mellow out. He wasn't going on Twitter as much. A lot of people don't remember this. He started not tweeting out as much. And when he showed up to debates, he would give a lot of nonsense answers, but he would have the one-liners, but he didn't do overly much. He would pace himself throughout the debate, and he would kind of let Hillary just, you know, he didn't really win that debate either, but he didn't completely light himself on fire and try to run at Hillary. He just kind of kept on shanking her a little bit, enough to cause doubt, and then she had later issues. This debate was, you I don't know who was advising Trump, because if he had gone in and just sounded sane, or at least said a bunch of nonsense answers and one or two like insults, typical Trump insults, honestly, he would have probably came off as the better candidate. Like, I'm going to be honest, because Joe Biden wasn't having particularly a lot of charisma. He gave solid answers, but then again, you have to look at it from Joe Biden's perspective and situation. He's constantly getting attacked with a bunch of weird lies, and like, you can't address everything. You can't address every crazy thing Trump says, because it's, like I said, verbal diarrhea. So all you have to do is stick on message, and it was a good idea for Biden to keep on trying to pivot back to the voters, back to the future. Andy, do you think, let me say this, Andy, do you think Biden's stature compared to how Hillary Clinton handled Trump, like how he looked, his pose, like, I feel like just Biden was naturally a little bit more relaxed than Hillary, and it didn't look like he was taking it personally. It looked like he was just like not taking Trump seriously at all compared to Hillary.
Yeah, I think one of the major strategies the Trump campaign had, and you kind of saw it throughout the debate, was to get Joe Biden flustered. We've seen throughout Biden's this political career that when he gets flustered, when his personal character gets attacked, he can start to kind of get flustered, get this kind of lying kind of thing to try to defend himself. You look at his class rank scandal that Trump brought up, where someone was attacking him in some kind of a local event back when he ran for president the first time, and he would lie, say, oh, he was like top 10 or top 10% of his class, when in reality he was like middle of the pack. But Biden did not look like that during the debate. There was times when he got feisty, but they were warranted. But he did not resort to really any lies or any kind of just screaming nonsense like he has done before. And then when Trump tried to go for the low blow, when he pivoted from his dead son and then try to attack his living son as some kind of Russian spy, kind of Russian wants to destroy America, even though he has how many Trump children in the office running the government? Like, he said a line that was like, oh, they went from running the company to running the government. That sounds so like nepotism right there. Like, did people not see that? I think Biden, he wasn't the most composed, but compared to Trump, he was very much more composed.
Yeah, but again, I feel like that some people judging Biden by normal standards, um, against Trump, I mean, that's as good as you can do in that situation. I will say the only big mistake I heard Biden make, and it was just a verbal slip when he was talking about his own environmental plan, and Biden accidentally said Green New Deal because he was just talking about it, and he verbally slipped that that was his deal. And Chris Wallace, to his credit, also was like, "Are you saying you support that?" And he's like, "No, no, that's not what I meant."
I
Um,
Real quick, Ashton, I think there's a little bit more mistakes Biden made tonight. I know there's at least two instances where Trump would call him out on something and he would pivot or try to move away from answering, which is a smart tactic. But I know one of those was crap, it is slipping my mind
the
now. Oh, the
Supreme
Supreme
Court.
Court hacking, yeah. The filibuster ending of that stuff. That was always been Biden's weakness. And you saw he kind of just looked straight in the camera, kind of like a deer looking at a car, and then he pivots because he wasn't going to answer that question. And I know there was another one of those questions I cannot. It was the Law and Order. There was kind of the iffy spot there, but
Mhm.
other than that, Biden gave an overall good performance.
Yeah, Andy, I think in general our I think, at least for me, my final thoughts on it is Biden came out how I expected, mostly all right. I wasn't blown away or shocked, but he didn't need to do more than what he did. And Trump was a lot worse than I expected. I seriously thought he was going to try to take this first debate somewhat seriously. He would get bad in a few exchanges, but in general, you're right. Biden had a few missteps, but Trump is not disciplined enough to just keep on nailing at him. And that's his problem. His campaign has suffered from the same way. You're 8 points down, and you have to be able to provide a message on why you should be reelected. And Joe Biden was just clearly the just better of the two on this night. Andy, I'm interested to hear, you were leaning towards voting for Biden, but you haven't really made that clear decision. Has this debate clarified anything? Are you less for Biden? Are you more? Are you still kind of like hesitant? You want to see next two debates? Because I'm sure those will be very informal for you.
My position on Biden does not change after this debate. It never has. I'm still 100% anti-Trump. That has been my stance from the beginning, is anti-Trump. It's always going to be, for me, the decision come November 3rd is if I'm going to vote for Biden or vote for a third party. That's the decision I'm going to make. And, you know, it's going to be a tough one. I'm probably going to lean Biden right now, but that could change. But, my personal views. I'm not going to, spend another 20 minutes going view by view and tell you guys what they are. But Biden's not entirely my number one choice when it comes to who I want to see as president. But, you know, we'll see as the debates go. Just how much I want Trump gone will really determine that. But Ashton, I do want to just finish up this kind of quick reaction video to the debate tonight, debate number one, with giving our grades of each candidate. I'll start. Now I'll start with Trump. I think it's a little bit easier. I will give him a D plus. I don't think it was enough to say he completely was just the worst person ever and didn't get anything done. A D plus is safe. He does what he needs with the base, gets his base energetic like he should. But he did not do a good enough to win over any voters. And I think with that D rating I give him, D plus rating I give him, he will lose some of those swing voters, independent voters. That's kind of what that grade is for me. And then Biden's side, I give him, I'll give Biden a B plus. Honestly, I don't think it's an A performance. I think it's more of a B minus performance, but I'll give him that B plus edge because he's facing a candidate like Donald Trump. Like, you have to give him, like you said, a few points just to say, hey, he's got to put up with that, right? So he gets a B plus. He's got some good one-liners in there, some good memeable quotes. Overall, good candidate, and is looking like the lesser of two evils after debate number 1. Ashton, what about you?
Andy, I'll start with Biden. I'll give him a B. Given the circumstances, context, that's probably as high as you can do without, like, I don't see how he could have been any better, honestly, just given circumstances. And I mean, I guess some of his answers could have been more clarified. He could have had better responses. Like, I was texting you like what I would have said in that moment, and I feel like Biden doesn't have as much sharpness as he did in 2012 when he debated Paul Ryan, but he's still a good debater, and a lot of people underscored that. And I think Trump's campaign did him no service by trying to undersell Biden before this debate. And I said it wouldn't work out the way they thought it was, and it clearly didn't. Now, with Trump, as I said, I expected him to come into this debate with around a C, C plus, maybe a B minus grade, because honestly, I thought he was going to act the same way he did against Hillary Clinton, which it didn't really hurt him. It didn't really help Hillary. It helped Hillary a little bit, but ultimately, in that debate, he did just fine. And he had his moments. He didn't have his moments, but generally in 2016, he did fine enough to keep on going and stay in that race until it got close enough. In this one, I have to give him a F. I have to judge him on regular candidates, and I'm not just doing that because he's Trump and because he's not my favorite candidate in the world. I honestly thought he was going to do better. And he didn't really. He only had like one exchange where I thought he was decent, and that was the Supreme Court. And everything outside of that, he just constantly was either espusing verbal diarrhea or just completely getting handed it to him by Biden. And Biden wasn't even doing that great. So I gotta give Trump in general a F. And if he keeps on like this, I honestly think Biden's on the verge of a 10 to 12, 13-point victory. And that would cause him around 350 to 400 electoral votes. I really honestly believe that now.
But guys, there you guys have it. There's our just debate reactions, debate grades for each candidate. We're going to do this for every debate coming up, the two remaining presidential debates and the vice president debate, which is going to be interesting to see how Pence is going to do against Kamala Harris. But guys, thank you for watching. It was a very interesting debate, to say the least, very historic for many of the wrong reasons that it should be. RIP to Chris Wallace. He didn't deserve that. I respect the man. But guys, thank you for watching. Hit that like button, share, subscribe. Let us know down in the comments what you guys thought of the debate. Stay safe out there. Keep wearing your mask, and we'll see you guys in the next video.